Hello everyone and welcome back to the UPSC Journey. My name is Babita, your the Hindu Analysis faculty at UPSC Journey. In this session, we are going to cover the complete Hindu analysis for 19th of May 2026. After the completion of this session, you can download PDF from a Telegram channel. Link is in the description box. We'll start with the first article. And the first article is regarding RTI Act. So this article say that RTI Act does not apply to the cricket board. Means RTI Act does not apply to the BCCI. Says CIC means Chief Information Commissioner said that BCCI is not under the jurisdiction of RTI. So first of all, look into this why it is in news. So the Central Information Commission, that CIC, ruled that BCCI, that is Board of Control for Cricket in India, it's a private entity, so it does not fall under the Right to Information Act 2005. So first is that BCCI is not any public entity or not any government entity. It's a private entity and that's why it not fall under the Right to Information Act of 2005. It says that it's not a public authority. BCCI is registered under Tamil Nadu Societies Registration Act. Very important that BCCI is registered under Tamil Nadu Societies Registration Act first in 1975 and not established by constitution or any government legislation. Means it's not established by any constitution or any government law. So it's completely private organization that is registered under Tamil Nadu Societies Registration Act 1975. No substantial government financing because it is not directly or indirectly funded by government. Means it has not provided any funding directly or indirectly by government. So it does not meet the criteria under Section 2nd H subclause D of RTI Act. So it does not meet the criteria that comes under Section 2 Clause H subclause D of RTI Act. Now we talk about Chief Central Information Commission. So its composition, Chief Information Commission 1, and there can be a 10 or up to 10 information commissioners. So its composition is very important that there will be a one chief information commissioner and there will be up to 10 information commissioner. Again, the appointment made by President of India, and President of India appoint based on the recommendation of a committee, and this committee consists of 3 members: Prime Minister, a leader of opposition and a union cabinet minister nominated by PM. So President is going to appoint the Central Information Commissioners, which include Chief Information Commissioner and other Information Commissioner. On the recommendation of this 3 members committee consists of Prime Minister, leader of opposition and the union cabinet minister nominated by PM. Again, if we talk about CIC, that is Central Information Commission, it's a statutory body. Statutory body means it's created under an Act of Parliament under RTI Act of 2005. So again, very important that it's not any constitutional body, it's a statutory body created under Act of RTI Act 2005. Its function is quasi-judicial authority, means it can hear complaint and appeal regarding RTI Act. If any complaint is registered under RTI Act, the CIC have authority to hear that complaints or that appeals under RTI Act. Its jurisdiction over like central government offices, public sector undertakings, financial institutes or any union territories. So the jurisdiction of CIC is over central government offices, public sector undertaking, financial institute or union territories. If we talk about like the basis for the removal of CIC or other information commissioners, they can be removed from their office by President of India only on the specific ground, as we have seen that they will be appointed by President on the recommendation of a committee consist of 3 members, Prime Minister, leader of opposition and the union cabinet minister. On the same way, they can be removed by President only on this following grounds. First, if the person is insolvent, means declared bankrupt, then that person can be removed by the President. Second, if there is a moral turpitude means if any CIC or Chief Information Commissioner or Information Commissioner is convicted of any offense involving a moral misconduct, Means any of them is included or convicted in offense that come under moral misconduct. So they can be removed. Paid employment, if they are accepting like paid employment outside their official duties, means they are holding a office of profit or a paid employment outside their official duties, then they can be removed. If there is a case of infirmity means they are not physically or mentally fit for that post, so they can be removed. And if financial interest, if they have financial or other interests that prejudice their duties, means if they are involving any such kind which is out of boundary of their duties or involving any in financial or any other interest, like talking about their tenure and service of condition, talking about their term, the Chief Information Commissioner and other Information Commission shall hold the office for the term prescribed by central government. Like earlier, it was 3 year. And earlier, the term was only 3 year, but now the term is extended to prescribed by central government. Means they will hold that office till the prescribed by central government or until they attain the age of 65. So they can be removed earlier because there was no term fixed for them, and at the same time the time prescribed by central government or until they attain the age of 65, whichever is earlier. Very important, they cannot be re-eligible, is they are not re-eligible for the appointment after completing one term. Means once they become CIC or IC, means Election Commissioner, sorry, Chief Information Commissioner and other Information Commissioner, they are not eligible for the reappointment. Very important that they are not re-eligible for the appointment. Again, like this is the basis of removal of Chief Information Commissioner. Insolvent means bankrupt. Moral turpitude means have some misconduct. Because of that, they can be removed. Paid employment. Infirmity means due to physical or mental unfitness or financial interest. If they involve any in financial activity which is outside their duty, so they can be removed. Again, we have seen that removed by president only. And on the ground of misbehavior or incapacity, it required a reference to the Supreme Court of India, which conduct an inquiry and recommend its removal. Like if there is any order to removal, or if there is any order of removal, then it requires a reference of Supreme Court. Then Supreme Court will conduct an inquiry, and then Supreme Court will recommend the removal. Safeguard is this ensure that independence and prevent arbitrary removal. We all know that here we have mentioned that they hold office for the term prescribed by central government and until the age of 65. As they are holding office until the central government is prescribed the term. So it doesn't mean they are totally dependent or not free. To provide them a safeguard or a prevent a arbitrary removal, a similar protection given to the chief electioners and judges. Means they have same protection as given to our judges to remove or to prevent this arbitrary removal so that they can work independently. So this is why CIC, like how CIC work and its composition, 3-member committee, then its statutory nature, jurisdiction come under central government, public sector undertaking, financial, union territory. Then basis of removal, like insolvency can be the reason, moral turpitude can be the reason, paid employment, infirmity, and financial interest. These are all the reason of removal of a CIC or IC. The tenure is prescribed by central government or until the age of 65, and they are not eligible for the reappointment. Very important. After that, like you have seen that to prevent their arbitrary removal, it required a reference of Supreme Court, and that will conduct an inquiry. And after that inquiry, they will recommend removal, and they have same protection as a election commissioner and judges in India. Okay. The next article talking about Modi's meet of Norwegian PM as they seek to rise ties to green strategic partnership. Like in previous days, we have seen the India and Norway both the countries having a strong relation ties, and now they are raising their ties to the green strategic partnership. Why it is the news? Because Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Norwegian PM Jens Gehr met in Oslo. We have seen a Oslo summit in Norway, and during this meeting, the main focus was on sustainability, climate change, and green technology. Means both the countries are forming a cooperation on sustainability, climate change, and on green technologies in this Oslo summit. Combines India's scale and speed with Norway capital technology. We know that Norway is very ahead or far in capital and technology sectors. If this will address a global issue like Ukraine-Russia war, the West Asia war through these dialogues. India brings scale and speed in implementation, while Norway contribute technology and capital. Means both the countries are going to do a very close partnership relationship in green technologies. Look into the global context, both the leaders emphasize resolving conflict like Ukraine Russia conflict, West Asia conflict through this dialogues rather than a military action. Looking about economic backdrop, build on the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, means that is TIPA, signed last year between India and EFTA countries. EFTA countries means countries Switzerland, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. Means we have signed a free trade agreement between these countries, Switzerland, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. Talking about European Free Trade Agreement Association, that is IFTA, European Free Trade Agreement. It is an intergovernmental organization for the promotion of free trade and economic integration of its member, and its member consists Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein. Not these are not part of European Union. These are part of European Free Trade Association, and these countries members are like Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein. Among these IFTA countries, Switzerland is the largest trading partner of India. Very important that out of these IFTA countries, Switzerland is the largest trading partner of India, followed by Norway. So, because of this, Norway is also a very strategic partner or very crucial partner for the trade in India. This partnership will help in India to access to the advanced green technologies and investment capital. For Norway, it will help like expanding influence in Asia and leverage Indian large market. As we've seen that Norway is very advanced in green technologies, so it will help India in green technologies and investment capital. On the other hand, it will help Norway to expand their market in East Asia or in India's large market will provide a huge scope to the Norway. Again, if global diplomacy position of both the nations has advocated as a peace and sustainability, means both the nations are looking for both peace and sustainability. So this is about like a green strategic partnership between India and Norway. How India and Norway both are going to have a close relationship to bring speed in implementation, and Norway is going to contribute technology and capital in sustainability, in climate change, and in green technologies. Then we have to remember this IFTA countries, Switzerland, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. Again, Switzerland is the largest trading partner, followed by Norway. And this partnership will help in, like in India, it's going to help for green technology advancement and investment of capital. For Norway, it's going to help in expanding their market in Asia. And for at global level, it will help for both the nation to have peace and sustainability. So this is about India and Norway strategic green partnership. Again, if we're talking about like next article, this article is very important because this article is about like improving efficiency for fertilizer use in India. We all know that India is largest importer of fertilizer. Although India domestically produce 80% of urea and fertilizers, but still we are heavily dependent on imports. So we need to improve The efficiency of fertilizer use in India means we need to have a shift toward natural farming or reducing the use of fertilizer in India. In this, like, we are going to see a fertilizer trap, that how this fertilizer trap is working, because government is doing procurement for the crop which are heavily intensify or heavily depend on fertilizers. So this is one reason that it putting the farmers into a financial fertilizer trap. Again, the lack of coordination, efficiency use of this fertilizer. So all this article is covering. First point is news because India is facing the rising cost of fuel and fertilizer due to ongoing West Asia conflicts. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed farmers to reduce chemical fertilizers. We all see that PM has appealed to use of this chemical fertilizers and asking to shift toward natural farming. Use and say that the use of this fertilizers should be reduced by 25% to 50% to protect the soil health and save foreign exchange, because as we know that we are an import dependent country in terms of fertilizer. So by reducing this fertilizer use, we will able to save a foreign exchange, is we are going to reduce our import. So by reducing our import, we will able to save a foreign exchange. At the same time, it will help us to protect the soil health, because excessive use of fertilizers kill the fertility of soil. Again, like West Asia conflict has disrupted this fuel and fertilizer supply chain, rising import cost. India produces 80% of its urea domestically, but relies heavily on imported fuels, and it's almost fully dependent on import of phosphatic fertilizer. Though we like 80% we produce urea naturally, but still we are heavily depend on imports, and India is totally depend on phosphatic fertilizer, because in India we lack in phosphatic fertilizers, or we have not a natural reserve of phosphatic fertilizers. So India is totally depend for the import of phosphatic fertilizer. First thing, PM Modi urged to cut fertilizer use by 20% to 55%, warning that excessive use can degrade soil and eventually it will lead to stop production. We all know that excessive use of fertilizer will reduce the fertility of the soil and eventually stop production. It highlighted that while a bag of urea cost 3,000 in abroad, well, in India, farmers get it in less than 300 due to subsidies. So there's also creating a financial burden, because the bag which cost around like 3K in India, the farmer is getting at a very low price, around 300 rupees. So it costing a fiscal deficit on it government pocket. So if we reduce this import, we will able to manage this fiscal deficit also. While green ammonia produced from electrolysis of water, we all know that green ammonia is produced from the electrolysis of water. But again, using solar energy is an option. But this like electrolysis of water, again, not suitable in water stressed areas, or it will cause to decrease the water level in an area which is already under water stressed areas. So again, this process is also not very convenient, because the area which are already under stressed, this practice is not suitable. The situation is worst for the phosphatic fertilizer. We have seen that India is totally dependent for the phosphatic fertilizer, because India lacked in mineral rocks like phosphate, and therefore has to import such fertilizer almost entirely. Means we entirely import phosphatic fertilizers because we don't have a natural reserves. For example, the government announces minimum support price over the 20 crops. So now this is about like how this fertilizer trap is working, because we know that government announced minimum support price for more than like 20 crops, and this government is actually supporting this minimum support price, or actually procurement is limited to the rice, wheat, sugarcane, and that's why farmers prefer to grow only these three crops, because government is providing MSP to a very limited crops like rice, wheat, and sugarcane, and all these crops are heavily depend on fertilizers. And because government is providing a minimum support provide and actual doing procurement for these crops, So farmers are only willing to grow this crop because this crops will going to help in a having the money now. So this crops will only help in a profit. After this, we'll say that this crops consume over 2/3 of all urea in India. So these three crops again are heavily depend on urea. So it can be directly asked in your prelims that rice, wheat, and sugarcane. Both three crops are fertilizer dependent. Correctly, these are totally fertilizer dependent crops, and for these crops, almost use 2/3 of all urea in India, and this will destroy the traditional crop rotation involving, like in previous time we had seen that there was a pattern of traditional crop rotation that involved pulses, ligaments, and but now because of the procurement limited to these crops only, limited to rice, wheat, sugarcane, now the farmers have grown these three crops, and that is actually creating a fertilizer trap for the farmers. Okay, now if we talk about like stock assurance, the government confirmed that there is an ample fertilizer stock for the Kharif crop 2026. Means government have assured that we have a sufficient supply for the Kharif crop 2026 with the current reserve at 51%. Means government have as of now 51% of reserve. That's total demand of 390 lakh ton, which is above usual of 33%. So we have, as of now, we have ample and we have sufficient fertilizer stock for the Kharif season. The domestic production in March and April, we have 67 lakh ton, including 40 lakh ton urea, around 6 lakh of DAP, and of 13 lakh something around NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And we imported, like, although we are producing this much annually, this producing this 67.7 lakh ton, but again we are importing 19.94 lakh ton, which added to ensure sufficiency. Means to meet the demand, we have imported this much fertilizers. 19.9 lakh ton we have imported to meet that requirement. So let's show that we are import dependent country. We are not, we have not sufficient amount to meet that supply. Looking about like efficiency concern, the expert warned that over 2/3 of India's 2 lakh crore annual fertilizer subsidy is waste due to inefficient use. So inefficient use of the fertilizer is also one concern, which led to the pollution of environment, soil degradation, and the climate change impact. Because if there's no proper use of this fertilizer, it will lead to the environment pollution, it will lead to the soil degradation, and climate change impact is also going to be there. Again, the fertilizer trap means demand never saturate, even the supply increases. So even we have an ample amount, the supply chain we is enough, we have enough amount, but even the supply chain increase, we have not meet that saturation limit. Means the demand never saturated, means demand will never be fulfilled, even we have increased the supply. So this is a fertilizer trap, because the more fertilizer we are going to provide to the farmers, the more they are going to use it. So this will going to be a looping, because the more they have availability, the more they will going to use it. So it will form a fertilizer trap. Again, because of this fertilizer, there's a cause of salinity and alkalinity. We know that excessive chemical input increase salt accumulation, and the salt accumulation will lead to salinity of the soil, and especially in irrigated area, because if there is an increase in salt content, there is increase in salt accumulation, then that area will be more saline, and because of that salinity, the crop productivity will decrease and make soil less arable over the long time. Means the soil will ultimately lose its productivity, and soil will not be arable over a long time. So again, the use of fertilizer increase the risk of salinity and alkalinity in a soil. and that will make a soil unfit for a very long period of time. Again, like if we talk about nutrients imbalance, overuse of nitrous fertilizer like urea led to soil acidification. Very important point from your like means point and from your prelims perspective. That soil acidification, nitrous fertilizer is one of the key reason or for soil acidification. Very important that nitrous fertilizer, urea led to the soil acidification. And again, imbalanced NPK ratio cause indeficiency in micronutrients like zinc, boron, iron, and manganese. Means if we are using this fertilizer, in actual we are increasing the quantity only. We are not like putting pressure over quality, because overuse of this fertilizer will cause a deficiency of zinc, boron, iron, and manganese in this crops, and that will cause a deficiency. So we are only having a food which is large in quantity, but we are not focusing on a food that is rich in nutrients. So we have to look into also this, that we, by increasing the productivity, there should be sufficient nutrients in the food like zinc, boron, iron, and manganese. Again, Indian agriculture operate under negative nutrient imbalance of 10 million tons annually. Means we are producing crops which are negative nutrient balance. Means they are lacking in nutrients like zinc, boron, calcium, iron, manganese. So we have to look into this matter also, that we are producing enough, but that food is also nutrients balance, should be nutrients balance. And as of now, we are negative nutrient balance of around 10 million tons annually, meaning more nutrients are removed than replenished. Means we are removing nutrients from our food. Trade deficit and forex reserve, because we are importing this fertilizer, it causing impact on import depend arouse, like in 2025 to 26, our import increased from 23% to 34%. So this is a very alarming situation, that the increase of fertilizers increasing day by day, which eventually causing a negative nutrient balance in the country. Means we are removing more nutrients from the food. And in 2025 to 26, increase from 23% to 34%. Very important. Fertilizer import jumped from 160 lakh metric ton to 249 lakh metric ton in 2026. So here we can see that there's a long jump in import. So we are increasing our import, and that is causing a fiscal deficit. That is causing import deficit, creating a more import in India. Heavy reliance on West Asia, like for fertilizer import, we are heavily reliant on West Asia like Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Exposes India to geopolitical risk around the Strait of Hormuz. And in this kind of situation, when there is an ongoing war situation in Strait of Hormuz, or ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, USA and in Iran. So in this situation, we are more prone to the geopolitical risk, because we are totally depending on the import from the countries like Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. So this article is whole about like how we are totally depending on the fertilizers. So there is time to reduce the fertilizer use at least by 50%, so that soil can be protected from soil degradation, and eventually we can have a nutrient food in a plate. Again, it's causing a fiscal deficit, because it costs like around 3K abroad, this urea bag, and India it's cost around 300 rupees. So again, it causing a fiscal problem to the India. Again, if you produce like green ammonia, it uses electrolysis of water. Again, it's not suitable for the water stressed areas. And India is lacked in natural reserves of phosphatic fertilizers. So we totally import phosphatic fertilizers again. And very important, these three crops are using 2/3 of urea in India. That is rice, wheat, and sugarcane. And in India, government provide procurement to the limited crops that include rice, wheat, and sugarcane. Again, very important that this fertilizer use is increasing and causing salinity and alkalinity, which is increasing salt accumulation, and over the time the crop productivity will reduce and there will be a less arable land, means less cultivable land over the time. Okay. Next article is regarding unlearned lesson. This article is more about like how India is lacking in having a gas reserve and petroleum reserve. Means India is not having adequate or sufficient petroleum or gas reserve. So this article is talking about that India has not learned a lesson from the 1991 crisis, and as of now we are at a standing position where we only have a reserve of 7 days, like of 7 days reserve for petroleum and gas reserves. Unless India's inadequate strategic petroleum and gas reserves stand exposed. It highlighted India's vulnerability in energy security, especially during the time of global oil prices volatility and rupee depreciation. That we all seen that there is an increase on prices of the fuel. At the same time, the rupee depreciation. So this both the situation are making a worst condition for India to have a petroleum and gas reserves. So we are actually lacking in the reserves of petroleum and gas. If we talk about strategic petroleum reserves, India has strategic petroleum reserve of only 36.7 to 39 million barrels. Means we have around of 39 barrel of reserve that will be sufficient to cover only 7 days of consumption. So we are actually not having sufficient petroleum reserves or gas reserve, and we have only 39 million barrels, which will cover only 7 days of consumption. If we look into the other economies, like if we talk about USA have 714 million barrel, again very high amount. Again China 900 million barrels, very high. Like India is comparison only 30 to 40 barrels with 700 or 900 barrels, and again UA the large underground reserve. So this comparison show that other economies like USA, China, because we always compare our Indian economy with USA and China. So look into this reserve figure. So we'll find out that India has not, as of now, India has not sufficient oil reserves or petroleum reserve. Petroleum reserve or gas reserve. LPG and LNG storage. India has 1.1 lakh ton of LPG storage. So we have this much, 1.4 lakh ton of LPG storage as of now. Relies mainly on LPG stocks at regasification facilities with no underground storage. Means we only rely on the regasification, means only on the import or regasification facility, means importing from the countries, but we have not underground storage facility. So it's very concerning, very alarming that India has only 7 days of consumption. Rise in crude prices and rupee depreciation increase import will. Again, we have seen that rupee is depreciating day by day and that increasing our import bills. Public sector oil marketing companies faces losses due to under recoveries. All the oil companies and small MSME sectors are facing losses because of this import bill increase. Recent retail price hike after 4 years, we have seen that there's a 3 rupees price hike in prices of fuel that reflect that there is a stress condition. Other nation invested in underground storage and long-term contracts. Like as we have seen that China and USA and UAE countries have strong reserves. So because they have invested in underground storage facility and long-term contracts. Where India have only limited reserve, which expose that its supply shocks and geopolitical risks. Means India have not have any underground storage or they not have any long-term contracts. So India is only having the short-term plan that is of regasification. So it's exposing that India is more prone to the geopolitical risk because we have not sufficient stocks available. If we talk about energy security, India reserves are insufficient against global disruption, means we don't have a sufficient reserves in case of global disruption. So if there will be any global disruption, the prices are definitely going to increase in India because we have not sufficient reserves that meet the actual demand. Although we have reserves, we have working on that, but we have not a sufficient reserves that will help to meet the actual demand. Talking about strategic autonomy, lack of preparedness, because we are not prepared for this kind of geopolitical risk, which reduce India's bargaining power in global energy markets, because we are not prepared enough for this kind of situation. So this reduce our bargaining power at global energy markets. Talking about economic stability, high import dependent make it inflation, because we are importing it, so it will going to have a more inflation in India, and that inflation will going to cause a fiscal deficit, and the situation is going to be very worse in time of crisis. So this is a loop. Like if we are going to more import, then they are going to have more inflation. And if there's a more inflation, there is a more rupee depreciation. So this is the one cycle, that if there's going to be increase in import, there's going to be more inflation, and if there's going to be more inflation, going to be decrease in rupee value, and this is going to cause a fiscal deficit during the war crisis even worse. Implementing agency under special purpose vehicle called Indian Strategic Petroleum Reserve Limited, established in 2004. Like we have implementing agency for this petroleum reserve, established in 2004. I work under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Storage technology. Crude oil is stored in underground rocks like carvings. Very important that we are storing our crude oil in rock like carvings and located deep below the ground, usually near coastal areas. So very important that we having a storage capacity, or we are storing it underground rock carvings or near the coastal areas. We have two facilities as of now for petroleum reserve. First, phase 1 is at Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. That storing capacity is 5.33 million metric tons. And at Visakhapatnam, Bengaluru, Karnataka, and then Padu, Karnataka. So we have these three strategic reserve limited. Second phase we have approved in 2021 with additional 6.5 million metric ton at Chandikol, Odisha, and Pandur phase second. So we have these two facilities for the strategic petroleum reserves. Visakhapatnam, Bengaluru, and Padur, Karnataka. We have these three in first phase, and in 2021 we approved at Chandikol, Odisha, and Padur phase second. So again, like this is important that India have to focus on the reserves, so that in term of war-like crisis or situation, we can actually observe that external shock. So for that, India need to have a proper reserves by forming more facilities like phase 1, strategic petroleum reserves 1, and phase 2. Our next article is regarding waiting for the storm. So why it is in news? The severe pre-monsoon system. We all seen that the dust and storm and lightning, heavy rain in UP and nearby areas. So despite the predictability of weather events, India remained vulnerable. We all know that during this monsoon season, we generally see this kind of situation where there's a storm, lightning, and heavy rain cause a very large destruction, or causes a very large destruction. So despite the predictability of the weather events, India has remained very vulnerable to this kind of situation. Last week, a pacey pre-monsoon weather system barreled into UP, bring a compound of thunderstorm, dust storm, and lightning and heavy rain. Means there was a announcement, there was a predictability that there will be going to have a thunderstorm, dust storms, lightning, and heavy rain in India, the UP region. It impacted like 111 deaths and 72 injuries across 22 districts. So this storm, this lightning and heavy rain caused a very large destruction with the 111 deaths and 72 injuries over 26 districts. One of the deadliest weather-related disasters in recent years. Forecasting, India Meteorological Department issued timely alert. UP government sent 34 crore red and orange alerts by Sehat portal. Again, it's very important that Sehat portal is for the to issue the this portal is used by government to issue the guidelines regarding Indian weather. So UP government has sent this 34 crore orange and red alerts through Sehat portal, but there was ineffective in areas we have seen. Because of this ineffectiveness, it causes a large impact. Interaction between hot and dry winds from the Thar Desert and the moist wind from the Bay of Bengal trigger this intensive thunderstorm. So the scientific reason is that the hot and dry winds from the Thar Desert and the moist wind from the Bay of Bengal trigger this intense thunderstorm. Structural vulnerability, like we have fragile roof systems, we have poor electrical wirings and weak infrastructure in rural area, which again was this kind of situation. And this situation shows that there is a gap between prediction and preparedness. Although we have given this prediction, but we were not ready and we were not prepared for that. So they show that there is a large gap between prediction, having a prediction of this kind of situation, but not having a preparedness will not going to help in any way. So at the same time, we need a prediction. At the same time, we need a preparedness. This highlights there's a need for disaster resilient infrastructure and community awareness and a rapid response system. Means there should be a disaster resilience infrastructure that will able to handle this kind of storms or this kind of intense weather. And at the same time, we need a community awareness. Means in this kind of situation, the people should come forward for the help, and there should be a rapid response system. Reinforce that climate adaptation must go beyond forecasting to include local capacity building and urban planning reforms. Means we should also have a climate adaptation program. Means not only having forecasting, but we should also include a capacity building. Means we should buildings have in such a way that actually can survive in this kind of situation. So we need to have a local capacity building, and then we need to have urban planning reforms. So these are very required things to observe this kind of situation. So this is about how the severe storm, how this heavy rain caused destruction in over 22 districts, and this is the deadliest one weather-related disaster in the recent year. This show that there is a gap between prediction and preparedness. Now government need to frame the more policy that are more driven toward preparedness. And for that, we need to have an infrastructure which is disaster resilient. We need a community awareness programs for the rapid response. And at the same time, we need to have a local capacity buildings and urban town planning so that this kind of situation can be removed or can be managed in the future. So for that, we need to remove this fragile roof systems. There need to be have proper electrical wiring system, and this weak infrastructure in rural area should be replaced with a proper infrastructure so that a disaster resilient infrastructure can handle this kind of situations. Okay, this article is very important. We have already seen a strategic tie between South Korea, and now it's a defense tie. In last week, we have seen that India has a strategic ties relation with South Korea, and this is about defense ties between India and South Korea. So why it is the news? Because India's defense minister visited to Seoul following the South Korean president visited to India in April, underscore the growing momentum and the strategic significance of India-South Korea partnership in recent years. This is because India's defense minister visited South Korea and the South Korea president visited to India in April. So these is going a strategic significance in the recent years. These exchanges have elevated bilateral defense engagement from a routine cooperation to strategic partnership. Means from a routine cooperation to now we have reached the point of strategic cooperation between both the countries. Very important. Project areas, collaboration span submarine technology, means both the countries have collaboration for the submarine technology, for the aerospace project like KF-21 fighter jets, FA-50 aircrafts, and a defense manufacturing sector. Means both the countries are doing a close collaboration for the technologies like maritime, defense manufacturing, and the aerospace projects. Both the countries focusing on technology transfer and the joint production, which align with the India's Atmanirbhar or self-reliance vision. Is both the countries are focusing on transfer of technology so that there will be a joint production and that will help both the countries, and India, it will align with India's Atmanirbhar vision. Both the nations share concern over regional stability and freedom of navigation and supply chain resilience. Means both the countries want a stable regional cooperation, want a stable freedom for navigation and a resilient supply chain. Means both the countries having a close cooperation for this stability. A partnership complements India's tie with other Indo-Pacific democratic like Japan and Australia. As one of the world leading shipbuilding power, we know that South Korea is one of the leading shipbuilding power in India. So South Korea can significantly contribute to India's growing maritime ambition in the Indo-Pacific region through this cooperation in the way of destroyers, in the form of logistics vessels, submarine support system, and the smart shipyard and the naval technology. Because South Korea is one of the leading power in shipbuilding power, so it can help us in like cooperation in destroyers, logistic vessels, submarine support, and in smart shipyard and naval technologies. At the same time, this partnership is evolving beyond conventional weapon system toward innovation driven cooperation, because previously the cooperation was limited to the weapon system, but now it is increased to the technology or innovation cooperation. Both the countries are promoting defense innovative ecosystem, linking with startups, universities, research institute, and incubators and investors. I mean, both the countries are promoting ecosystem which will promote startups, universities, research institute, incubators, and investors. The proposed Korea-India Defense Accelerator, that is KINDEX, it's very important that we have signed one MOU, that is KINDEX, that talk about India-Korea Defense Accelerator Program that reflect future-oriented approach. At this strategic level, military exchange, naval power, coast guard operations, and defense obligations are strengthening interoperability and mutual trust. For India, South Korea offers advanced technology and manufacturing expertise, while India providing a large market and strategic geography, long-term industrial opportunities together. The two countries have potential to build one of Asia's most significant defense partnership. So, by doing a cooperation, both the countries can emerge as Asia's most significant defense partnership. So this is about all today's session. Let's do a recap. First article we have seen about RTI Act. And then next we have article regarding green strategic partnership between India and Norway. Next we have seen the improving efficiency for the fertilizer use in India. Next we have seen that unlearned lesson means we need to have a more reserves of petroleum and gases. Next article we have seen regarding the weather, and there is a lack in having alert or having a preparedness, means having a prediction and preparedness. After that, we have seen India South Korea defense tie. So this is about all today's session. Thank you so much, everyone.